Good evening. My name is Rashid Akil. I am the chair of the Citizen Review Board. At this time, the March 28th meeting of the Citizen Review Board is now called to order. If you will, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now ask our meeting clerk, Tanya Wilcox, will you please conduct the roll call?
Dr. Banks, Dr. Collins, Tamayo,
Present.
Reyes,
Present.
Guy, Akil,
Present.
Ingandela,
Present.
Valdez.
Let the record show that all members of the Citizen Review Board are present with the exception of Dr. Banks, Dr. Collins, and Ms. Guy. At this time, I will ask our Vice Chair, Colonel Reyes, to read the meeting guideline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good evening, everyone. Please silence all electronic devices. The duties and responsibilities of the Citizens Review Board are to review completed department investigations involving use of force in cases of importance and interest to the community or the city, determine whether the disposition of reviewed cases was consistent with department policies and procedures, review matters of importance or interest and make recommendations regarding the handling of these matters, determine whether any revisions or additions to department policy and procedures are appropriate in reviewing matters of or importance or interest, and report findings and recommendations to the mayor and chief of police. Cases that are brought before the Citizens Review Board are closed internal affairs cases that have been investigated and brought to the police chief for disposition. It is the Citizens Review Board's job to review the cases and render an opinion as to whether the investigation was done according to department policies and procedures. The Citizens Review Board members are provided the investigative files in advance of the meeting. The Citizens Review Board will hear from the department whenever matters of interest or importance are requested for review by the board or the department. The coordinator for the board is Captain Patrick Mesmer. Any person who wishes to make a complaint concerning a matter which may be considered by the Professional Standards Bureau should see Captain Mesmer for information on how to file a complaint. The board should not discuss matters where the city or the department may likely be a party in litigation. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Colonel Reyes. We'll now continue to item 4, approval of the minutes from the meeting of February 28th, 2023. Are there any questions or provisions? Hearing none, I would need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Board member Lincoln Tamayo has made a motion to approve the minutes of the February 28th, 2023 meeting. Board member Colonel Reyes has seconded the motion of approval of the minutes for February 28th, 2023 meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will continue with the vote. All those in favor, please show by raise of hand. Any opposed, please show by raise of hand. The motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Colonel Ray, excuse me, Mr. Valdez.
I would like to see how we can work through public comment if possible. It is a challenge getting back here to the auditorium. So I would like to propose either moving public comment towards the end of the agenda or being able to receive public comment now from where it's here in the audience, or at the end of the item CRB staff reports and business, whoever else has joined us that would like to make public comment, we can give them a time, an opportunity to do public comment at that matter.
Mr. Valdez has opened the floor in reference to rearranging the agenda in reference to public comment. Any further discussion?
Well, one of the options given by Mr. Valdez was to have public comment now, which is the next item on the agenda. So
Now, but having whoever comes in afterwards after public comment, if they give them an opportunity at the end.
Oh, if they come in after?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not easy to find. The auditorium.
We can use that in our discretion. We can continue with public comment as is placed on the agenda, depending on how the meeting goes. But if there is a late participant that wishes to participate in the public comment portion at that moment, one of the members can suggest a motion, and we can take a vote.
I'll make a motion that we'll take public comment now of anybody that's here in the audience, and towards the end of the agenda, I will make another announcement, or Mr. Chair, you can, indicating that if there's any other member or participant in the audience that would like to make a public comment, they will at the end of the agenda. At the end of the agenda.
Stating in the agenda, particularly in front or past which particular item?
CRB staff reports and business right after that.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second the ability to make comments later in the meeting after the new business.
Mr. Valdez had made a motion in reference to continuing the agenda with the public comment as stated. In addition, for any late participants to also have the opportunity to participate in public comment under CRB staff reports and business. Devon Ingadella has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? We'll now continue with the vote. All those in favor, please show by raise of hand. Any opposed? That motion passes. We'll now continue with the agenda with public comment. For any participants that currently would like to participate in public comment, please, if you will, there's a microphone here to my right. You can go ahead and continue to stand in line, and we'll continue with the public comment portion of this agenda. Please, once you get to the microphone, if you can state your name and address for the record. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, the microphone's working. My name is Philip Freund, and my address is on the sign-in sheet. And I want to say, I'm speaking on behalf of a person affected by TPD misconduct, Kelsey Staremski, who was assaulted by TPD officers Nicholas J. Hardesty and Edward S. Barreto, in reference to case number 19-531689, which occurred on October 12, 2019 at St. Joseph's Hospital at 3001 Dr. King Boulevard West. I, as a community member and a member of the TBCAC, would like the CRB to review the lack of discipline in regards to the use of excessive force as a violation of professional codes of conduct provided in 11B-27.0011. This is a matter of interest to the community as per the City Charter 18-8, Section C-6.
Thank you. Do we currently have any other participants that has formed this line to participate in the public comment portion of this agenda? If so, please continue. Please state your name and the address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sandra Zickery. My address is documented on the form. I'm here today to respectfully request my complaint to be reviewed by the CRB for public importance. 2 CRB members informed me to request such relief as well. I emailed a formal complaint this morning to the CRB and sent it to every law enforcement agency in the state of Florida, and recently met with the intern chief. An attorney and CRB member in a different county informed I have a fundamental right to have my complaint reviewed before the board. The Tampa Police's failure to provide my complaint to the board, despite numerous requests, is a violation of my rights. Before I dive into why this complaint is for public importance, I'd like to read an email from Internal Affairs from July 19th, 2021. In part, it states, "We are aware of Florida laws and tolling cases. At this time, there is no evidence of a crime occurred. You have stated you have proof in a handwriting expert analysis but have yet to provide that report. Please provide the report from the handwriting expert when you receive it. I did indeed provide the reports, and they still do not have the audacity to document it. Furthermore, in 2020, I informed the detective about adverse incident in the hospital. He didn't describe what occurred, but just stated I mentioned a negative story. In 2020, the hospital allegedly lost a dead baby's body. The child passed in the intensive care unit. Here, in this case, the doctors attempted to take my child into the intensive care unit, and I have reports from billing experts that there's falsified records that he went into the intensive care unit, but the reports don't support such clause. The doctors have various lawsuits throughout their careers, have killed their patients due to recklessness, and just recently killed a baby. The hospital was busted by the FBI last year for defrauding the state Medicaid of millions of dollars. There's a clear sign of behavioral concerns. I wanted to provide an additional comment in regards to tonight's discussion to maybe set the tone. I have a friend that resides in Hillsborough who is recovering from extensive injuries of her husband shooting her in the head of domestic violence. Over the weekend, I attended to a grieving mother who lost her 25-year-old due to domestic violence. Her boyfriend shot her in the heart. He was also associated with the police department in that county, altered the evidence, and somehow was able to get the death ruled as suicide. I think there should be an initiative to provide further education, training, and programs to prevent PTSD, as it is more likely in highly stressed jobs such as police forces, military, and so forth.
Thank you.
How can I get my complaint reviewed to the board if I'm formally requesting for it to be reviewed?
Let the record show that Dr. Collins is also now present. Before we continue with that particular question, next on the agenda, staff and board have the opportunity to respond to public comment. So if you will, board members, you all can just recognize that question. And if anyone wish to return response, please do so. If you will, thank you. I will now ask whether in any any recorded comments received for this particular agenda.
Margaret Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. There have been no written comments and no messages.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. If you will, Mr. Tamayo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the case of Ms. Storensky, has there been a complaint filed with the Tampa Police Department in that matter?
I am aware of the complaint sheet that we typically get monthly. I haven't seen that particular case. I know it was brought to our attention in last month's meeting.
Right.
And once I do recognize it on that particular complaint sheet, I believe everyone receives a copy of that complaint list as well. But I haven't seen that particular case on that particular sheet. Now that sheet only represents monthly complaints within that particular month. Right. So being that this is a case that happened prior to the months that we received, we may need to look back into that database system to recognize.
I just remember us providing some kind of a guidepost on how to file the complaint.
Yes.
And I was just curious as to whether a complaint had been filed since then.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
We'll now continue with the agenda, allowing staff and board to respond to public comment. At this time, the floor is open for board members to respond, question or comment any of our public commentary heard today.
Mr. Chair?
Carlos Valdez.
Yeah, and Dr. Collins, please correct me if I'm wrong, but to the young lady that asked how she report or make a report to us, I want to say it was the District 2 and District 3 stations that public can go to the stations and file a report. Is that accurate information? Anybody from, I know last month we had said to have a little presentation on how we can make a report, but if we can, for today, just how can she make a report that for us, if that's what your request is, right, ma'am?
Yeah, I want you guys to review the complaint formally for public importance. Given that I have a fundamental right for Captain Mesmar to submit this complaint for your review.
So how can she go about not contacting the CRB, but addressing some form of way to CRB through one of the offices?
Okay, I can, again, Captain Patrick Messmer, Tampa Police Professional Standards, I can go over how somebody can make a report to professional standards, but as far as how to make a report to the CRB, the ordinance, Ms. Pettis-Mackle can correct me if I'm wrong, but even that email address in the ordinance, that doesn't go to you, that goes to us. There is no way for somebody to make a report of misconduct directly with the CRB. They make that report with the police department because we're the ones by statute who have to investigate it. If the CRB wishes to review a matter, the CRB can motion to review that matter, but we're not going to bring a case to you without that happening.
Do you have a case number? I'm asking your kid.
If you will, if you can, please approach the microphone for audio recording, please.
They provided me 3 different case numbers that state citizens' complaints, and do you want those case numbers?
All I want is for somehow we can address the situation in terms of seeing what is it that we can do as a board. We have limited availability to engage in different cases as it relates to any open cases. We do not know that information. So I would suggest to go to District 2 or 3 and be able to talk to somebody in that office to be able to make a report so that it can be reflected that you made a report to the CRB.
Is it a police report or this is a citizen? I have all that information right here.
If you will, in addition to making a complaint directly with the department, citizens may now submit a complaint via email to the CRB by emailing tpd-crb@tampagov.net.
I did.
If you will, Dr. Collins? Yes.
I'm going to say what I'm understanding we do so that it'll be clear and it will be on the record. And then if there are any other questions, you will be able to get with the city staff, TPD. There are 3 district police departments, 1, 2, and 3. We did talk last month about having maybe a modification of the form that we had where individuals would be able to file a complaint. That is incomplete at this time. It was just mentioned, so that would be out there as a physical. You could go online. The complaints are filed as was indicated by TPD, that the complaints go to the department. They do the investigation. The only thing that this board has the option to do and have requested it is that when an individual come before us and inform us of a concern, we refer them through the process that is set up by TPD. If TPD pursue that, we've asked them to notify us when the case is closed after the investigation. And then once we're notified, our chair will look out for that and then he'll bring it. And when that case is coming before the CRB, we will ask that when we are notified a month in advance that the party who filed the complaint, they also are notified, and you will have an opportunity to sit in the audience and hear the deliberation of that case at that time. That's the process that we have been using, and if that process should be modified in any way, then certainly we would be informed and we would be able to inform the public. If I'm wrong, then, give me a correction, but that's specifically what we have been doing with the CRB.
So I did file a formal complaint, and they have been closed. So I'm requesting a motion for it to be brought before the board. Is that No,
That's the prerogative of the chair.
still a little confused. Because last month you guys did that with somebody's case.
The floor,
No, we didn't. What we did was that person was refer her to the process in which she filed a complaint to the Professional Standards Bureau, which is then investigated by the police department.
Sure.
And then when that case becomes closed, we then determine whether we want to review that case.
They've been closed.
Among many others
Sure.
that the chair reviews.
They have been closed, and I have the case report numbers.
Well, then the chair, with our support, will determine whether we're going to review that case.
So do I just wait?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
The floor is open in reference to the public comment participant, in reference to that particular, there are several complaints that the public comment participant has mentioned. Does the chair is open to a motion to look into, in particular, which particular complaint of the request? Or do we even have knowledge of that particular complaint? There are several complaints in reference to this case.
Did you just go over those complaints in your public comment?
So the three previous.
If you will, please speak into the mic in reference to the complaint that you wish for the board to look into.
Okay, so there's three case numbers. The citizen's complaint, it's 20C-134, -128 and 126. I emailed a formal complaint outlisting basically all the issues and allegations in one, and I emailed it to the CRB. And I mean, I requested the Tampa Police to refer the complaints to you, and they're refusing.
What do you mean by refer the complaints to us? They don't refer, we're not an investigative body.
Sure.
They're the investigative body.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't refer any case to us. They would present to us cases that have been closed,
right,
that then we determine whether we want to review that case.
right.
So the police department isn't referring anything to us. We're not a co-investigative body.
Well, the complaints are closed, and I'm,
Well,
requesting review from the CRB, and I,
So,
If you will, Mr. Valdez.
what you're looking for is for us to review the case as we do on a regular monthly basis to see if we concur with the disciplinary actions and any other actions that came out of that case review.
yes, sir.
So, being said that, I'll make a motion to review case 20C-134-128-126, to review the case and provide a recommendation to the department if we concur or not concur with the disciplinary actions.
Correct, as well as my formal complaint submitted tonight, earlier in email, sorry.
We're addressing the case right now as I believe the complaint goes through an email, and we get a report based on the email.
Okay.
If you will, Mr.
do we even have confirmation that those cases have been closed?
If you will, can we have a member of Tampa Police Department that can share some light in reference to the complaint case that's allegedly closed that may present itself on our monthly list for us to review?
Sure. So, again, Patrick Messmer, TPD Internal Affairs. These complaints all predated me back from 2020, so that's the case number. They are complaints. They are not formal internal affairs investigations. There is no disposition. There is no discipline. When somebody calls in and makes a complaint and the information's reviewed, and in this case, the information was reviewed by the investigator, the investigative supervisor, the investigative commander, consultation with the state attorney's office, consultation with legal counsel, determined that there were going to be no criminal charges filed. That was the crux of the complaint, that the allegations were improperly investigated, that the investigation should have resulted in criminal charges. Criminal charges were not filed. That was basically the end of the complaint. Same complaint for the same incident keeps coming back and back and back and back. Just because she sends new information in, that doesn't mean we're going to open up a new complaint. The complaint was made in 2020 about an incident that occurred at St. Joseph's Hospital. That complaint regarding that same incident is closed, and we're not going to be adding new things to that complaint every time she contacts the department. So if she goes to a district office and wants to make a complaint about the same thing that occurred at St. Joseph's Hospital, that was already documented and addressed in 2020. Now, if a new incident happens, and she gets pulled over tonight and the officer is rude to her, she can obviously make a new complaint about the new incident, but we can't just keep taking the same complaint over and over again about the same incident. So the complaint was made in 2020. It was not a formal internal affairs case at that time. It was reviewed by command staff and legal counsel. It was determined that the investigation was not improper just because somebody wasn't charged with a crime, and it was closed at that point. So that is what happened with that case. So it's not, under the ordinance, it is not a closed internal affairs investigation.
Thank you, Captain Messmer. Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel, there's a motion on the floor in reference to reviewing the old cases in 2020 complaints. Can you elaborate on that particular motion? Is that motion something that this board can look into before we continue with that particular motion that's on the floor?
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. So, Mr. Chair, if the board determines that this is a matter of great importance, the board can certainly make a motion with the understanding of what Captain Messmer explained about what their process is and what the TPD investigated. I don't know if that's the pleasure of the board to review this matter that of great importance. That's the pleasure of the board, if that's what you so choose.
Thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor. I believe what this particular participant has addressed this board in reference to public comment in several of our meetings. I would like to bring some type of closure to this incident, so I will recognize the motion that's on the floor. Before we continue, we'll open up in discussion. Do we have a second? If you will, Carolyn Collins.
I'll second it for discussion. I'll second the motion for discussion. But I have a discussion piece. I have a discussion piece I want to ask. If the case, and this is to our legal counsel and to TPD, if this is a case that is a complaint, the complaint was looked at, investigated. It did not go through internal affairs, and primarily what we look at is closed case from internal affairs. And if this is something that is from St. Joseph Hospital and it's a medical, when a case comes to us like that, are these things that we perhaps refer those people to other entities where they may go because it is not a citizen review type of issue? And I know it keep coming before, and I've seen the complainant be here quite often. But if it's not something that we handle from citizen review, is there anything in our process that may not even involve us that we can refer? Because I'm here in a health-related case. Maybe there are some other avenues where that should be, and it continuously coming before us. Thus, we've had a difficult time with closure. You know, is this a JCO? Is this a, state health, state legislator, somebody else, that's all I'm saying, for clarity.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Dr. Collins, I'm not aware of any other outside agencies she could refer to. to seek further investigation of her complaints. If the state attorney's office reviewed it, she's welcome to go back to the state attorney's office. But if this is a matter regarding St. Joseph's Hospital, I'm not sure which agencies she could go to.
Thank you.
Mike Schmidt, and just to maybe try to clarify a little bit there. I mean, you mentioned the Board of Medicine. There is the Board of Medicine, of course. Her ultimate complaint, from my understanding, is about a doctor falsifying an affidavit in her medical records. And that has been the basis of her complaint since 2020. And then when TPD investigated, along with the state attorney's office, and determined that there was nothing that could be done, she then made a complaint about the investigation done by TPD. Right? So that's basically what we're in a nutshell. So the Department of Health, Board of Medicine, certainly reviews doctors. If there's been misconduct by a doctor, I think she could make a referral there. If that's her ultimate allegation is against a doctor, she could obviously sue a doctor. She could hire private counsel and seek a lawsuit if she believes a doctor falsified documents, if the doctor committed perjury, if she believes that there was some sort of misconduct. She could obviously seek those remedies as well. So I do think there is potential other remedies in the law that she could seek her complaints.
And Mr. Chair, thanks so much. That helped. In lieu of the fact that it is a health-related issue, and in addition to the Board of Medicine, St. Joe's has a board, as does any of the hospitals that have a board. But in addition to that, the Hillsborough County Legislative Delegation heard probably of the 90-some cases that they heard, looked like the first 20 of them was all health-related cases, similar to that. I would even say your elected official at the legislative delegation level, which also deals with health-related issues. And I understand our need to try to provide you some opportunities, but it seems to me that a CRB case is not what this is. It is a health-related case, and we would love to see you go get some help, because if it's closed here because it's not TPD or CRB, then have you been to the Legislators Board of Health, JCO, state health, ACA, those kind of entities? And that's all I can think of. That's my limit of my healthcare background.
Thank you.
I'd like to dispute some of these comments.
At this moment, a public comment portion of our agenda has been closed. There has been a voted motion on the floor to continue public comment after the CRB staff reports and business, to allow those who have walked in after this meeting has started to give those people the opportunity. There is a motion on the floor, so if you will, please, you can have a seat. I want to address the motion that's on the floor in reference to the motion that Carlos Valdez has made and Dr. Collins has seconded. That particular motion that's on the floor is in reference to the complaint case against TPD, correct?
Correct.
Those three cases that you mentioned into your motion, Dr. Carolyn Collins, you have a notation. Can you repeat those three cases that was provided in the motion that you second?
And that was the thing that questioned me. I heard 20C-134, and then I heard 128 and 126. So I don't know if they all 20C-134, 20C-128, and 20C-126, but they was read as 20C-134, 128, and 126.
If I could just I don't have those numbers with me, but if the board would want to make a motion for all of Ms. Zickery's complaints to come in front of them, we can find the three complaints.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? We'll now continue with the vote. All those in favor, please show by raise of hand. Any opposed, please show by raise of hand. That motion has failed. We will now continue with the agenda under item 7, items to be reviewed. Tonight, we're reviewing PSB case number 21F-020, MOR 1007, conformance of law sustained, MOR 1005, standard of conduct sustained, MOR 1208, insubordination sustained. An officer was charged with battery, domestic violence as a result of an off-duty incident. A warrant was issued for his arrest. The officer's major ordered him to turn himself in, which he refused. The officer resigned during the investigation. If you will, can we have a member of Tampa Police Department to present this case? And please state your name, rank, and department of the record, for the record.
Again, Captain Patrick Messmer, Professional Standards Bureau. I just wanted to introduce, I'm going to present the case, but I wanted to introduce Major DeFelice. He is mentioned in the letter here. He's actually the division commander for District 3, which incorporates this area where we are tonight. So he's in charge of all the law enforcement operations in District 3. So in this case, this involved Corporal John Simpkins. On December 23rd of 2021, there was a domestic dispute at a restaurant up on Dale Mabry. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office responded up there. They met with a victim who did not recall the incident, but the victim had some injuries, and that incident was captured on video. So there was no disputing that the incident actually happened or the way that the victim said it happened. Through some investigative work, the Sheriff's Office was able to identify Corporal Simpkins as the person who committed that offense, and they were able to obtain a warrant for his arrest. Major DeFelice at the time was his division commander. He ordered Corporal Simpkins to turn himself in based on the warrant. He refused to do so. He was subsequently arrested a couple days later and charged with battery domestic violence. He was relieved from duty, and then he elected to take deferred retirement while the case was still under investigation. So he declined to provide a statement or cooperate with internal affairs at that point. So though those violations, conformance to law, standard of conduct, and insubordination were sustained, that was reported to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement pursuant to moral character violation. They did find that there was a probable cause to believe that the moral character violation occurred. That matter has been set for hearing. We don't have a hearing date scheduled for that yet as to whether or not he's going to face decertification. And that's basically the crux of that. The criminal charges against him were subsequently dismissed. They were.
I will now open the floor for any questions for Captain Messmer, if you will. Carlo Valdez.
Can you elaborate on the deferred retirement, what that entails, and was there anything that he received?
That means that he has been here longer than 10 years, so after he reaches the age of 46, he would be eligible for a pension at that point.
Did he receive a pension?
Not yet, he's not. I don't believe he's 46 yet, but he will.
If you will, Colonel Reyes.
Good evening, Captain Messmer. A couple administrative questions so I kind of understand how the procedures work. So in one of the documents signed by Captain Fernandez, it noted that the corporal retired. And then on, I believe, the investigative supplement, it noted that the corporal subsequently resigned. Are those synonymous terms, or is there a difference between retirement and resignation?
A retirement, technically, a deferred retirement, somebody who is vested in the pension, that technically would be considered a deferred retirement. Somebody who has less than 10 years could be a resignation, but as far as the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the CJSTC is concerned, it's inconsequential. The only thing that matters in their case is separation or resignation. It doesn't mean anything one way or the other. It still shows that he resigned while under investigation or retired while under investigation, and it still creates that moral character issue. So that whether or not it's referred to as a retirement or resignation, on the paperwork that gets sent to the state, it doesn't matter one way or the other.
Okay, and then the second question is, as a result of all this happening, and then he retired, so criminally, nothing happened to him? He just retired.
The charges were dismissed by the state attorney's office.
Was it as a result of him retiring?
The victim declined to cooperate further.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
If you will, Devon Ingendella.
Do you know if he's currently employed as a law enforcement officer?
He is not.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any further questions or statements or comments for Captain Messmer in reference to this particular item on the agenda?
Captain Mesmer,
Sure, Mr.
Section
Tamayo.
78 Section 784 of the Florida statutes, that's a domestic battery?
784.03, I believe, is battery. I'm not sure of the actual enhancement
And
statute.
then 943.13 is another form of battery? Are there two different charges there?
943 sounds like it's in the procedural category, so that might be the domestic enhancement.
Okay.
I'll have to look at the statute. But yeah, the 784.03, that's the simple battery statute. It's a misdemeanor.
Okay, thank you.
There were questions about his pension. Had he been, well, he would have had to have been convicted, but had he been convicted of a felony battery, then he would have potentially, if there was a nexus to the job, he could have been eligible to have a forfeiture of the pension, but there would have to be proven that nexus to the job.
Carlos Valdez, if you will.
Is that the only way, sir, that the pension can be withheld?
In a matter like this, that would be the only way, yes. There's certain other crimes, I believe certain sexual offenses don't require the nexus to the job, but otherwise it requires a felony conviction with some sort of nexus to the employment.
Any other form of disciplinary actions that can hinder an officer's benefits as it relates to retirement or pension?
In certain circumstances, if they are not convicted, but they admit during the investigation that they committed the felony, so you could have somebody who, for example, steals evidence. Maybe they're not convicted, but during the internal affairs investigation, they admit that they stole the evidence. In that case, it very likely could be used as a forfeiture as well.
Thank you.
But the findings of the Professional Standard Bureau...
If you will, Mr. Tamayo.
The findings of the Professional Standard Bureau have no bearing whatsoever on whether that impacts the pension. There has to be a conviction.
Correct. The pension forfeiture is an entirely separate matter that's dealt with by the pension board. And only when those specific statutory things occur is the pension board allowed to seek forfeiture. And it's actually a shall. It's not a may. So if an officer is convicted of a felony arising out of the course of their duty, the pension shall be forfeited. It's not really up to the board whether or not to take that case to forfeiture. It really is defined in the statute when that can occur, and only when that can occur.
When you say
If you will, Carlos Valdez.
When you say pension board, who makes up that board? Is it city officials, law enforcement, or is it a third-party entity? How does that work?
There are 3 police officers, 3 firefighters, and 3 city administrators.
And the pension board covers the entire city or just the police department?
The Tampa Fire and Police Departments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Messmer. I selected this case this month to bring awareness on the ongoing concern of domestic violence against women. In honor of this month, March, entitled National Women's Month, if there are any women that find themselves in a similar case as this case that was presented tonight, help is available. Please speak with someone today. You can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. The chair is open to a motion on whether we concur or not concur or are unable to reach determination regarding the deposition of this case and its finding.
I would move that we concur with the findings that violations of Manual of Regulations 1007, 1005, and 1208 as sustained by the Professional Standards Bureau, that we do concur.
Second.
Board Member Lincoln Tamayo has made a motion in reference to concurring with MOR 1007, 1005, and 1208. Board Member Colonel Reyes has seconded the motion. Any further discussion needed? We'll now continue with the vote. All in favor, please show by raise of hand. Any opposed, please show by raise of hand. That motion passes. Thank you. We'll now continue with the agenda under item 7 with Community and Tampa Police Department matters. If you will, Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Michael.
Mr. Chair, there are no items. We can continue with the next item, which is the review of the annual report.
Thank you. We'll now continue with the next item, CRB staff reports and business for the 2022 annual report. I believe everyone should have received a copy of that report. This was on last month's agenda that was tabled to this month. The floor is open to our board members in reference to any statements, comments, or questions in reference to the 2022 annual report. Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Michael, this particular report needs to be presented to City Council. Do we have a particular schedule in reference to myself, Chair, presenting this report to City Council?
I don't have that date yet. I have to prepare a resolution for that to be presented to City Council. Once that date has been determined, I will certainly update the board and you, Mr. Chair, and any members who would like to participate during public comment when it is presented to City Council, but I will update the board on that after this has been approved.
The chair is open to a motion in reference to approving the 2022 annual report.
Before the motion,
Dr. Collins?
there were, and I just wanted to look over it for the third time. At some point, we had asked for a priority list of things that were still listed, and we haven't seen it listed yet, and I didn't see it in the report. But what we were trying to do with that priority list, if there were things that were still pending, and the reason I was asking about that with the annual report, because I didn't see in there, I saw where we agreed with most of the disposition. If somebody saw it and I missed it, if we disagreed with any dispositions, are they listed in the report? I didn't see it, and I'm not too sure if it's in there.
The floor is open if any of our board members would like to respond or assist Dr. Collins' point of view in reference to the 2022 annual report. And just to ensure your statement, the cases that we reviewed and one's not in total agreement with in reference to the deposition and findings of that case, you would like to have that particular case highlighted and represented into the report.
Yeah, and the point was, the ones, it was only one or two, and I can't remember, but the ones that we had some issues with, we had issues with them for specific reasons. Some may have addressed the fact of, you know, is the policy strong enough, or is this what you're doing? And if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong, it may have been in 2021 or 2020, because this is 2022 report. But there was one where actually there were some changes made with some policies with TPD, and I'm not sure if that was reflected in here. I didn't see it, and it may have been because it was in 2020 and they were reflected in 2021. And I started to go back and look at 2021 report, and I didn't. So all I'm saying is, if it's not in here, will we continue to make sure that if there's something that we say, no, I think there have been times where TPD have said, well, we'll carry this back, but we don't think this is going to change. You know, this is going to stand. And I thought that was in 2021, which should have been reflected in the last year 2022 report, rather than we'll see it in 2022 and 2023's report.
Yeah, I'm not, Captain Patrick Messmer, Professional Standards Bureau. So on page 6, which is section 4, that goes into the cases and the concurrence. So the CRB concurred with the proposed determination of the disposition in 6 of the 10 cases. So it goes into how many won. So when I write this report, I go off of the minutes that you approve. So, you know, the motion that is made for concurrence or not concurrence, if you don't concur, the board doesn't provide a reason why. So I'm not going to make that up because it's not in the minutes as the reason why you didn't concur. So all that's in the report is that the board did not concur with the discipline, not any sort of speculation as to why the board didn't concur, because that's not reflected in the minutes. And there wasn't anything else that I could find reflected in the minutes that wasn't captured in the report. So I do go by the minutes of the meetings that the board approves, and there are certain sections in this report. Remember, when the ordinance changed, the report has to consist of certain things. That's why it has these specific sections in it. So if there's something that's not in the ordinance that's supposed to be put in the annual report, that's why it's not specifically in there, but it could be in that section 7 for the optional statement from the board.
If you look at that same section.
If you will, Dr. Collins.
I'm sorry. If you look at that same section 4 and go to, because you actually mentioned them in here, and I think it's incumbent upon us as a board to make sure that, and I think it was last month, a month before last, we didn't completely concur with all of the findings. I think when we do not do that, in all fairness to Captain Messner, we should then say why, whether we want to go back and look at it, whether this deserves a policy change or consideration, or that we just feel uncomfortable with this particular one. So thank you, Captain Messner. Then it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we give a reason why. But I did see it says, like, following the review of the 10 cases, the CRB concurred with the proposed determination of the disposition and the discipline in 6 of the 10. My question to us is, what made us deviate from the other 4? And so that we make sure we make it clear so it would be listed. Because if I'm looking at an annual report and I see that you didn't do 100%, you did 60%, I want to know what happened with the other percentage and why it was not addressed. And if I go back through my minutes, I may see it and I may not if we didn't bring it out. So that's what I'm talking about, Mr. Chair.
Right, and the sentence below that, so I go into the 4. So in two of those cases, the board did not render a motion. In one of those cases, there was no disposition, because if you recall, that is before the department started finishing the internal affairs cases. You know, like with Corporal Simpkins' case tonight, even though he resigned or retired, we still finished the case and came to a disposition. Years and years ago, that didn't happen. If they resigned, the case just ended. So in that case, there wasn't anything to make a motion for because there was no disposition. So that was very clear from the minutes. And then in the other case, there was it was a police shooting, and again, that was also clear from the minutes where there was no disposition of a wrongdoing. There was no allegation of wrongdoing because it was a required investigation. That's why the board didn't even make a motion. So those were clear from the minutes. Now the other 2 cases where the board concurred with the disposition but did not concur with the discipline, there was nothing in the actual minutes to say why. I would assume that the board felt the discipline was too lenient, but that wasn't reflected in the minutes.
Mr. Chair. If you will, Colonel Reyes.
So Dr. Collins, I think you kind of jogged my memory on this. So last month when we did the case about the undercover or from the female in Ybor City. And then there was an issue about the conduct unbecoming. It was MOR 1005, and I, in my motion, which was amended by Mr. Tamayo, my learned colleague to my right, he articulated the amendment. I initially did not concur with the disposition of MOR 1005 because I felt, wait a minute, it should be, if not explicit, it should be implicit, the standard of reasonable conduct. And so I think, if I understand you correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, are you saying that that type of specific non-concurrence, that comment should be reflected in the minutes so then Captain Mesmer would be able to see that and then further articulate that in the report? Got it. Okay, thank you.
And if there are specific, if there are specific things that the board wants me to, that you recall from these cases and you want me to change that and the board votes to add verbiage, I can definitely do that. It's just when I'm writing this report, because I'm the one who's mandated by the ordinance to write this report, I don't want to just assume things that aren't clear from the minutes. But if the board, like these two cases where you concurred with the disposition but not the discipline, if you want another line or two added to the report here, that's definitely something that can be done.
You will, Carlos Valdez.
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Collins. I think having it more detailed, not just numbers, but, and of course, we can either do this moving forward, or I don't know how time consuming would it be to go back and retract all the videos and the minutes, but I'm okay tracking it moving forward, where the board will make note of certain things that we want to highlight, and when we don't agree and concur with certain item, it is reflected on this report that we didn't concur with such discipline on this case for whatever reason. There's a specific reason, then we'll get that. But I definitely, like I said, agree with Dr. Collins, and I will open it up to discuss if we want to take the time to go back and make the edits to this report, or we want to just work moving forward.
If you will, Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Mockel.
Yes, so this annual report was presented to the board last month. So the board has 30 days, which will be this month, to approve this annual report so that it's then presented to City Council. So any additions or revisions will have to be made tonight to the annual report so that it can be finalized and that we could present it to City Council.
So,
Thank you. If you will, Carlos Valdez.
while I understand that and appreciate that, I also want to make sure we take into consideration that, certain things like this, we don't get to discuss here. We just review the report and make notes and whatnot. And a topic like this of looking at further, we won't be able to do this within one night. Captain Mesmer won't be able to, capture the date, I think, what we're asking for. So given that circumstance, I would just advise just moving forward from today for next year report, we will, track that data a little bit more, and us as a board do a better job at communicating when we want something captured in either minutes or on this board, we'll say, hey, let's make sure this is captured for the annual report or in the minutes. Do we need a motion for that?
Well, I believe the motion that needs to be made is whether we approve the 2022 annual report or we approve it with items being amended onto the report that Captain Mesmer can implement within the time frame for it to be presented to City Council.
But we are also changing the format for next year's report. So whatever we discuss moving forward is going to reflect this report for next year, if that makes sense.
Yes, I believe that would be a different motion in reference to moving forward to have certain items highlighted into the annual report of 2023.
Sounds good.
And moving forward in our course of upcoming meetings, we can specify if that case presents itself and we do concur with the disposition but not the discipline, then at that time, someone can make a motion in reference to that being implemented into the 2023 annual report.
These annual reports are just a summary. And in this case...
If you will, Mr. Tamayo.
These annual reports are a summary. And in this case, I believe the captain did a good job of summarizing the disposition of the 10 cases. I would also say that the minutes are also a matter of a public record, correct? And we have all the discussion of all those cases throughout the year. So I think it's covered, the public documents, what we discuss, and how we came up with our decisions. And this is a good, I believe, general summary of those 10 cases.
You will. Dr. Collins?
Since I started this inquiry, I want to make two motions. The first motion, I want to go ahead and make a motion that we receive the annual report because let me come back again. We discussed this last month, and we knew that by not doing it last month, that when we did it tonight, that it needed to be accepted so that it could move on. So I don't have any problem with the report itself. And having seen that when I looked at it, because I hadn't seen it before last month, but I have seen it now before this meeting. So I am going to make a motion that we receive the annual report for submittal with time specific based on staff working with the chair with notification to the board so we'll know when it's being submitted.
And just to get some clarity on your motion, not only did we receive it, but in that motion, are you also stating that we are approving the 2022 annual report?
That's what I said, we're motion to receive and approve.
And approve.
Yes.
So Dr. Collins has made a motion in reference to the receival of the 2022 annual report and approving the 2020 annual report to be presented to City Council. Do we have a second?
I'm sorry, I don't want to masticate this over and over again, but haven't we already received, aren't we reading what we've received? We've received the report.
We received and we approved. We're approving what we received. I
Okay.
didn't get it, y'all got it last night. I didn't get it.
But we're asking for a receipt of the,
No, we're not asking for
Okay,
a receipt.
all right.
No.
If you will.
We're saying that we received,
If you will.
for
Councilman
clarity, make a motion that we approve the annual report that we received and discussed on last month to move forward for presentation before the City Council with our chair and notification to the board based on Attorney Pettis, you know, say your name right, okay? So our attorney, as she do whatever deems appropriate for time sensitive or time specific to make presentation.
So are you currently amending the current motion on the floor?
We'll use the last motion for clarity, yes.
And Colonel Reyes, do you accept that motion and continue to second that motion? Any further discussion in reference to the approval of the 2022 annual report? We'll now continue with the vote. All those in favor, please show by raise of hand. Any opposed, please show by raise of hand. That motion passes. This report will be presented to City Council. In addition, if you will, go continue, Dr. Collins.
If this needs to be a motion, I'm going to ask. This is to us, the board. When we agree or disagree with a disposition, whether it's the disposition or the discipline, if we can have that recorded in our minutes so that when Captain Messner gets prepared to do the reports, it's clear. So that then is incumbent upon us to make sure from this point forward we actually read our minutes to make sure it's in there. Because then, if not, Captain Messner, if we see the final report next year then we can always submit it to you. Is that correct? So that you can add that to it once we get it. And this is not a motion, these are questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You stay there too, I want to ask a question as well.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
after
sure.
your question, then, is it possible that we can go in and ask
I mean, I'm not sure.
that this
attorney-
30 days be changed?
So I mean, my suggestion would be, if you're going to make a motion to disagree with the discipline, the motion would be for the board to disagree with the discipline imposed by the department due to it being too lenient, or due to the, and as, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as that motion incorporates the mindset of the board, then that would be reflected in the minutes.
So, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Dr. Collins, you don't have to make a motion regarding that matter. It's on the, it's the motion maker's discretion on how to make the motion regarding whatever the board's desire, whatever the motion maker's desire is. It's up to the motion maker to make that the basis of the motion. But you do not have to make a motion tonight regarding the board's action in the future on how to make a motion. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I don't want us to determine how the maker of the motion make the motion. I just want to make sure that our minutes are inclusive of why we made a decision.
If that's how the motion is made, it will be included in the minutes.
But if it's not, are we then allowed to
When you
make sure that it's in our minutes as a note? And if not, in other words, if I don't make that motion and I don't second it, but I vote for it, am I allowed to come back and indicate, let the records reflect that the reason we didn't is because the discipline was too relaxed?
As long as that was discussed in the meeting, then you could certainly amend, you could ask that the minutes reflect what the motion is. But at the time you're making the motion, members, it's imperative to provide the basis for your motion. That's the time to do it.
I got you, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm asking us to do it.
I will now ask if there, we're still currently under CRB staff reports and business after the approval of the annual report. Once I present this report to City Council, if the board wishes for me to add a statement or a question or idea to City Council in reference to the Citizen Review Board, I will be more than happy to do so as well, attached to the 2022 annual report presentation. If there's any ideas or any statements or questions that you would like for me to relate back to City Council in reference to that presentation, I can do so at that time. I believe Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle is going to inform me of when that date becomes available. So depending on that date, this is something that we could discuss on next month's agenda, depending on that date in reference to that presentation. If there was an idea, a statement, a question that you would like for me to present to City Council at the time of presenting the 2022 annual report. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle, board members can also be present at that presentation, and if so, they will have the opportunity to address City Council as well, correct?
That is correct.
So as soon as I get notification, obviously that date would be shared for individuals that would like to participate in that presentation as well. Carlos Valdez?
No, sir, that was my question.
That would conclude item 7 on the agenda. We now will continue with items continued, but prior to doing so, there was a motion approved by the board to allow any participants to participate in the public comment if you attended the meeting before that item was was reviewed. So if there are any participants in our audience that would like to participate in the public comment at this time, you may be able to do so. And if so, please make a line here at the microphone and state your name and address for the record. If not, we will conclude that public comment portion of our agenda.
What if I have additional comments? I'm upset that there's
This item that is currently on the agenda are for individuals who have made, who might have came late before we had the public comment portion. We're going to allow those that came late and we had already surpassed the public comment portion of our agenda to go ahead and participate in doing so. Anyone who had the opportunity to participate in public comment had the opportunity at that time.
right, but I just want to state for the record of the falsification of the evidence.
So
that
if you
I
will,
was I was assaulted.
you had your opportunity for public comment, so I'm going to ask for you to have a seat.
I'll be here
If you
next
wish
month.
to continue with public comment, you'll have more opportunity next month meeting.
Absolutely, I will, because I've
Thank
been
you.
assaulted by a doctor. A doctor. It's not just forgery. I'm injured. I'm in pain.
Thank you. If you will, please have a seat. If there aren't any other audience members that would like to participate in the public comment portion of this meeting, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, Joseph Nahaba, North Tampa. Yeah, I'm here to follow up again from last month's meeting in reference to case number 19-531-689, which occurred on 10/12/2019 at St. Joseph's Hospital. And this is about Kelsey Storensky, who was assaulted by TPD officers Nicholas Hardesti and Edward Barretto. I would like, and our organization, Tampa Bay Community Action Committee, would like, again, this issue to be followed up on by the CRB, to review the lack of discipline in regards to the use of excessive force as a violation of professional codes of conduct, provided in 11B27.0011. And this is a matter of interest to the community as per the City Charter, Section 18-8C6. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda, moving on to items continued. There are no items continued. We will continue with announcements for new business, including the next meeting will be held on the 4th Tuesday of the month, falling on April 25th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at Forest Hill Community Center, 724 West 109th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33612. Board members, for any reason you are unable to attend the next meeting, please notify our City Clerk, Tanya Wilcox, at least 48 hours in advance so we can ensure a voting forum. Any other announcements?
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. I did want to state I will not be able to give a presentation on this until we go back to Old City Hall, but the Citizens Review Board website has been revised to provide a simpler explanation of the process to file a complaint. I will do that presentation. I will show the board members at our next meeting in May when we return to Old City Hall, because I'd like to show you what I'm speaking of. But I did want to update the board about that. Additionally, I have two correspondence for Mr. Chair to sign. One to the Urban family that we're going to send, the board wanted to send their condolences to, an additional letter for the state attorney for a reminder of the invitation for her to appear or a staff member to appear to explain the policy regarding the matter that was discussed before the Citizens Review Board. I do have those two correspondence, and I did want to update the board about that.
Thank you. As you would, Dr. Collins.
Thank you. And I was about to ask that question about the state attorney, so thank you for that answer. The other question that I was going to ask, and thanks so much for working so expeditious, that was fast on the website, but we had also kind of inquired about whether or not the website, when it give that information to be clear to people in the community on how to complain. I know I asked about the possibility of a loading, not a loading page, but some kind of page when you go in there, so you'll know that you're going in the CRB. Is there some work still being done on that, if you can, or is that going to come later? I didn't know.
I don't understand your question. Can you restate it?
When you go on the TPD website and it start talking about CRB, it's constantly showing police.
Okay, I understand. We'll work with.
You're going to work, you're continuing to work on that. Okay, thank you.
If you will, Carlos Valdez.
I just wanted to follow up on the case that we just also discussed last month, which we made a motion to bring up to the board, 19531-869. Is that something that will be coming down the pipeline to review, or how would that process work?
Sir, can you repeat that case number?
19531-869.
I believe that is the Storemski case.
Right.
And your question is, has that case,
Yeah, I just want to follow up where we are. Are we expecting it to come in front of us at any time down the pipeline, or is there anything that we need to do, or will you select it from the queue? How will we be able to review that case?
if you will, Mike Schmidt?
Without going into too much of the matter, I will just simply say that on advice of legal counsel, we are requesting that this matter be set for the October 2023 CRB meeting, and we will report it back then.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So to answer your question, Mr. Valdez, that particular case hasn't been in my selection box. However, with the motion that's on the floor, when that case is prepared, as Mike Schmidt stated, it will become available to us for that October meeting.
Thank you.
So that implies that a complaint
If you will, Mr. Tamayo?
That implies that a complaint has been filed and is being reviewed now by the Professional Standards Bureau.
There was back in 2020, I want to say, 2020. 2021, there was a complaint filed. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Still under the item of new business, once we present the 2022 annual report, what is the next upcoming steps of preparing for the public CRB survey?
We'll be discussing that internally, and then we'll update the board at our next meeting.
Thank you. We will now continue with the agenda. Before I adjourn this meeting, I'd like to give any of our board members the opportunity to add any final comments or statements at this time.
I would just like to see more participation from the community in which we are coming to speak with the police department on. And I've noticed that the participation from the community has not been very good at all three locations that we've been to in the last 6 months, including the participation of the city councilors who are inviting us to come to their districts. And I believe only one of the three city councilors attended. That was the one that we did at Wellswood. City Councilman Maniscalco, but I don't see City Councilor Goods or did not see the city councilor in District 4 as well. Right at the Jam Plat.
And just to concur with your statement, that information is also included in the 2022 annual report of members of the city council who were present in various districts, and I believe there was only 2 that actually showed up for one of our meetings. So again, when we present this annual report to city council and one wish to make a statement or be present, can also inform city council of their participation, which also came from their ideas to help us with the ordinance that we serve today. With Carlo Valdez.
If I may add to that, and I know I've spoken on this in the past, is there a way, maybe just specific for our meetings that we do out here in the community, that our social media person in the department, whether it's the city or Tampa PD, can promote the meeting and share on Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot to get awareness out? We sit in city council or in city hall and we struggle with attendance because of location. We've been going out to different venues and we're seeing the same results. So clearly the marketing piece is not there. So the message or the invites is not getting to the community. And again, there's multiple ways of being able to engage the community, but I think there is a heavy precedence on social media. And by simply inviting the community to one of the CRB meetings, I think that will be somewhat powerful, just like we do the town hall meetings that we've been doing for gun violence and whatnot and other things. We can definitely, do something similar to that effect, I would suggest.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. If you will, Dr. Collins.
I was going to say something a little opposite, but since you said that, I'm noticing that next month we go to another area. It really doesn't afford that much opportunity. I know that the city council asked that we schedule these 4 meetings, and I would hope that, and we know this one was somewhat delayed for a reason, but it would be nice not to have them back to back, because then the advertisement is even worse when you have them back to back. And I always tend to think of other staff that's got to do 2 meetings back to back, and has to be recorded, staff got to come out. So I would hope that we, even though we may be delayed with someone, that if at all possible, we try not to do them back to back. And then the other thing I wanted to do is, even though the attendance sometimes is low, I want to thank those that did come out to the meeting tonight. We appreciate you being here, and there are meetings, and the meetings are always at City Hall, but we decided to comply. We didn't have a choice. We complied with what the council had made the recommendation and modified, that we come out to the community so you would have a greater chance in your community to actually attend the meetings. And if there's anything that we can do to assist with the staff, I've said this since I came on the board, what it is we can do to assist, whether it's to work with staff when we get the notice. I try to send a notice out to local churches. I actually called back on the radio station on Saturday to remind them that we would be at Middleton High School today, and the first thing they said was, Middleton. But I just want to say, yes, that's something we need to try to work on, to figure out if the interest is there, how we can get the individuals out. We know when the interest is high, because we know when they came, and we know when we could not get out of here until 11 o'clock. But we'd like to have people come, tell us what they feel. It may not always be the answer you want. We'll try to do the best that we can do, but at least come. And I want to say a special thank you to those that are here tonight.
Thank you. The Citizen Review Board is now adjourned.